Have you ever wanted to network and you just have absolutely no idea how to do it? Today's video is all about networking, and if it's maybe new to you or it's a buzzword, it's something you want to do but you're just a little bit shy or just not sure, this video is just for you.
If we're not growing, you're not growing.
Networking. For some people, it is just one of those things that they just don't want to do. They just don't want to get out there. And my first advice is, if you're thinking about doing networking and you want to get more customers and you're in business, sometimes you just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Before I get into the video, today I just want to promise you and say that, hey, I'm going to give you 3 takeaways, 3 things that you need to know about networking so that you can build that next customer that you want to serve your business, to get that next sale. I want to give you first up a little bit of a history on networking and how I got into the whole networking space. So years and years ago, when I was in my late 20s, the business I worked for had a business coach, and they saw the potential in me in wanting to go out there and build new clients. And they said, hey Nathan, what we want you to do, would you be up for this? We want you to start going to some networking events, and there's this thing called BNI. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I started looking at BNI and Googled what BNI was. Absolutely no idea. You gotta remember, I think at that stage I was 27, had no idea about networking or really even selling. And here I was, thanks to the employers, the guys that I worked back then, saying, hey, we're going to push you into a position, and being forced to be in a position of being uncomfortable, to go do some networking because we want you to bring some new clients into the practice. And so that's how I got into networking. Really quite simple, but forced. And being from a younger age, I then built up a lot of skills around understanding how networking works, and then, you know, what you need to do, the basic principles, so that you can bring some new clients into the business, right? And it doesn't matter what business you do, we all need to sell ourselves and our services. And it doesn't matter whether you're even an employee or a business owner. At the end of the day, you want to think about what work you can bring in to help build your business. So anyway, I'm going to give you my top 3 tips on everything I've learned in the last, 15 years or more. So it's probably about 15 years of networking, so you guys can get your next customer. I think it's really important to address and understand what networking is, okay? So networking can be really described as soft networking and hard networking, but before we get into those really descriptive ways of describing networking, it's really as simple as just saying, hey, within your daily lives already, you've already got a network of people that you know. And networking is really just about putting a framework or a system around actually getting a system, or just really a strategy to use my network and then be a little bit more systemized about it to bring customers to my business. But generally speaking, everyone has a network, whether that's your school friends, your gym friends, maybe you belong to a church, or there's another organization you belong to. There is a network of people or a group of people that, you know, and even when you've been out at your gym or you've been out at whatever it might be, at some point, like if you're in business, you naturally say, hey, I sell blah, blah, blah. It was like, for me, hey, I'm an accountant. Oh, really cool. I was thinking about changing my accountant. Or, oh, I know a friend, he's been looking for another accountant. Do you mind if I give him your number? And what you naturally do is, within these groups, people already know you and they've got this credibility with you. And because they've got the credibility and they know who you are, naturally what happens is, you start referring either yourself, because you've got that trust, or your friends or family to this person to fill a problem. And I think naturally as humans, we want to help each other out. But yeah, so that's networking in essence. So you're probably already networking already and you don't even realize you're doing it. But what networking is really about is going, well, what we want to do is we really want to formalize this, and we really want to actually think about how we can use our networks or find other networks that we don't have currently to build up essentially people that will be what we call referral partners or referral leads that will get to know who you are, and then when they know their end customer, and then they're going to refer you. For me, if I was going to a networking group, I want to build up trust with those who go to that networking community or group so that they get to know me. And so when they are out and about and they see someone who is looking for an accountant or someone to help them with a business that's not profitable, because they understand what I do, it comes to mind that, hey, you know what? I remember Nathan, he's fantastic. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually do an introduction and refer them to each other because I want to help my friend or whoever it might be because they're in a spot, and you know what? Nathan can fix that problem. And that's networking in a nutshell. But there's different types of networking and there's different ways to go about it. And I guess today, my 3 tips is about formalizing a strategy so that you can be a little bit more systematic about finding the right people that you're going to work with, the right people you're going to build up a relationship with, that then get to know your product or service. And then the next thing they're going to do is they're going to actually refer you that next customer. There's 2 different types of networking that you need to be aware of. There's soft networking and hard networking. Soft networking is all about a networking strategy where there's no real formal systems to it. So it might be you turn up to an event, there's no real strategy or formula. There's no real formalities about it. Hey, you know what? I turn up to a local event held by a local community and I just go there, say hi, and hopefully you might swap a few business cards and I might get some work out of it. But there's no real structure to it. You could go to the next, say for example, a networking meeting that's not so formal where there's no real structure to it, or it could even be like your next community event you go to that could be anything from a PNC meeting to maybe your local soccer club. You go there, there's no real formality about it, but you do your own work. There's no reason why you can't, for example, form a relationship with someone and then follow them up. Hard networking is quite the opposite in that there's groups where they have a lot more structure and they have meetings where people turn up with an intended purpose of wanting to basically form relationships and be very systematic about getting that customer lead. So an example of that would be like a BNI, which I talked about before, which is a organization where they organize and coordinate networking meetings where there is a structure to coming. So it would be that, hey, we're going to meet once a week at the same time. We have an agenda of different things that we're going to do. We can introduce ourselves to each other, and then it could even be that we're going to also make sure that we've got some KPIs, some key performance indicators as part of your membership to make sure that our end goal of finding new customers for each other actually happens. So that might look like that once a week as part of your BNI meeting when you attend, that you need to refer so many people to the group, or you need to meet with one person in the group to get to know them. And this is where I think BNI works quite well as a networking organization, and with the framework and I guess the formality is that it forces you to get to know those who are in the group. So when you get to know them, you understand them, you're more likely to actually refer someone you know to them as the customer. So that's soft networking and hard networking. But my 3 tips would be, depending on where your business is at and how much you want to invest in it and how much time you have, the networking that you may do may differ depending on what you want out of it. My first networking tip is for those who want to do something that's limited cost and it's a little bit more on you to go and organize and coordinate everything. So my first tip for networking would be, it's as simple as saying, hey, you know what, get yourself a piece of paper and think about 3 different industries that you know. So if you're an electrician, think about who knows your end customer and what industry that is. So if you think about your end customer, if I'm an electrician, who is going to refer work to me? Is it going to be like someone like an accountant? Is it going to be a gardener? But if you think about it very closely, you're most likely to find that an electrician, their referral sources or their referral leads, their end customers are going to be speaking to maybe builders, maybe plumbers, other tradespeople, might be even an architect or a draftsman. And when I talk about maybe this networking tip, following this through, write those 3 industries down on a list of paper, and then off those 3 industries, so it might be the builder, the architect, and the plumber, and do you know 2 or 3 people in each one of those categories? Write their name down. And then the next step is actually picking the phone up or writing an email and saying, hey, you know what? I really like what you do. Do you mind if we catch up and have a coffee? Or maybe typically with tradies, and I say this to all my tradie clients, right? You know what a lot of guys like doing, like a lot of tradies, love going for a beer on a Friday afternoon after they've had a hard week. So why not say, hey, look, it's the end of the week. How about we meet down at the local pub at 3:30? I'll buy you a beer. And the reality is everyone loves giving back, so they'll probably buy you a beer back. Or if you don't like beer, something else. And there you go. And just start naturally just work on a conversation of, hey, how was your week? What happened? Oh, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And just build up credibility in talking about what you do and then how you solve problems. And what you want to do is you work through that list of people that you've got on your piece of paper and then keep coming back to seeing them maybe once every 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And do your best and say, hey, I want to send you work. If someone comes to you and says, hey, do you know a draftsman? You'll be like, hey, Barry, the draftsman, he's fantastic at putting together plans. And I've seen some really good work that he's done. So how about I hook you 2 up? And then what's going to happen is when Barry gets that referral and that end customer, naturally what he's going to do is want to send you work back as well. So you start forming a relationship. When you start doing this, a lot of your word of mouth, which is just from a formal relationship with someone, that work now is coming in from them. So you're going to save a whole lot of money on advertising and marketing. And that's not to say that you're going to stop doing that altogether, but you know what? You won't be reliant on spending a lot of money in advertising and marketing to find that next customer, because you have a relationship with a group of people that are now looking after each other based on simply having those who come in their radius and just listening to what they're saying. And when they're listening to what that end customer is saying, they go, hey, look, I do have someone that can solve that problem. Can I introduce you to them? And then it's up to you to basically go, you know what? I can convert that client or that customer or not. But it's a customer lead or a client lead that you got at a very small cost, which could be as simple as just a few beers. And the reality is, who doesn't love a beer? Or maybe something a little bit stronger, maybe a Jack Daniels and Coke, just like I love. All right, so that's my first tip when it comes to networking. If you want to go for something that's maybe a little bit more organized and maybe a little bit of a cost, but still not overly expensive, I suggest like local community groups, like your local business chambers, or even maybe industry groups you might belong to. Continuing on our tradies theme, if you're a builder, you probably find there's a builder's industry that you belong to. Or there might be other common interest groups. It might be something as simple as maybe a local political group, or something where there's a common interest. Maybe it's a group where it's more about a hobby, but you're building up a relationship with those people and serving another purpose. But I do like the idea of local small business community groups because they are very focused on business and growing business, like our business chambers that are out there. And they tend to organise a lot of events which tend to be at fairly affordable cost. So I think that's a really good idea. And it's all about when you go to these events, turning up to the events and making sure you turn up regularly so then people remember who you are. Now the reality is, if you turn up to one event, don't go thinking that because I turned up to one event that I didn't get a referral, I've given my cards out to everyone and no one's called me. The reality is no one's called you because no one knows who the hell you are and you got no credibility. Like, you know what? The bigger your product or service is, the more effort you need to put in to actually get that leads coming through. So you can't expect that if you're a Sparky and you're resolving someone's wiring and their issues in their home, that after one visit you're going to get a referral. But if you sell something that's low cost, like maybe some flowers or some chocolates or very low cost service, there's not a lot of risk in the investment of sending someone your way, or maybe even the person you've met coming in buying off you. You've got to think about, if you do want to do networking like this, you've got to be willing to put the time and effort in to build up the relationships. And the one thing I have learned and what I've loved about networking is the relationships and the people I've met. And I've actually got some really good friendships out of people I've met in just doing my ordinary course of business in networking to bring the next customer in, the next client in. So make sure that if you're going to do this, turn up to the local events, get to know people, and once you get someone that you like, go as far as saying, hey, you know what? I really love the chat that we had today. Do you mind if we just catch up for a coffee later and we can talk more about our business, talk more about what it is that we do, and just have a specialized one-on-one hour talking about, hey, this is what I do. And that's how you then create the relationships that then create the leads that get you the end customer, all right? So that's my second tip, and it's a great tip that doesn't cost a whole lot. My next tip is for more of a hard networking groups. So these are really pretty much like formal networking groups that are run by businesses that are out there to make a profit. They organize these networking events to help businesses actually get those end customers. And what I really like about these hard networking groups, and there's two that I'm going to mention. There's one called BX and there's another one called BNI. BNI is worldwide, whereas BX is probably a little bit smaller, but very prominent in the Australian market. Now, what I love about these is that if absolutely know nothing about marketing, and you know what, you want to meet a whole lot of people that maybe you don't have a lot of contacts, these are great. And sure, there is a little bit of cost in you investing yourself in actually doing these events, because there is usually a sign-up cost to attend and have the membership, and then there's a regular cost for actually attending the meetings. But what I do love about these is that if you know nothing about networking, you have very little understanding about how to sell yourself or your product or service, this is a really low cost for you to actually get a really good understanding about networking, because they're going to provide so much education, because they're invested in you actually achieving, because they want you to keep coming back week after week. They want you to be here for the next 10 years in their networking group. You know what? They want you to be the best networker, because they want you to get a return on the money you've invested in actually turning up to these events. So I think anything like BNI and BX, I think is fantastic. And what I particularly like about these two groups is there's a lot more structure around the networking. So it's not as carefree, but what I do is, because it's not as carefree and there is a framework, there is a system to it, you're more likely to get a better return out of it. So it's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to get you a better result at the end. And the people who are turning up, they're just not there for a social chit chat, right? They're serious about wanting to find people who want to work with them and vice versa to get the end customer, and they're very keen on growing their businesses. So I think this is another great option that, you know, you should check out. Now, the great thing about these two groups is I know that you can turn up, you can rock up for 2 or 3 times and check it out, be a visitor and just see what it's like. See if it's your jam. If it's not your jam, you don't like it, yeah, cool. You don't have to sign up. Give it a go, have an open mind, get a little bit uncomfortable, and if it stresses you out, maybe work out, why does it worry me? Why do I feel uncomfortable when I'm in these meetings? And maybe it's because it's just you're in a space of doing something you never had to do before. Maybe you've never had to sell yourself before. Maybe you've never had to talk out loud in public. Generally speaking, like, everything's always hard to start with, but once you've done it a few times, you get better at it. So BX or BNI, and I'll tell you what, we will share some details in the show notes so that you can check them out. So finishing up, they're my 3 tips on what you can do networking wise. Remember, so the 3 things that I think you really got to be key to any networking. Even if you're not spending any money, it's your time as well. So make sure that you are getting a return on your investment, the return on your time or your cash. The next thing, which I think is so important as well, is think about the time and the effort you put in. The more effort you put into actually giving it a go and being open-minded about it, the more likely you're going to get a result out of this. And you know what? Remember as well that you're going to have to build credibility first before you get the leads. So don't go thinking that I've handed out a whole lot of business cards and no one called me. You know what? You need to turn up a few times. Think about it this way. When you've met a new friend, did you just go, hey, you know what? You're a friend, come around to my house and friendships blossomed? No, it works over time. And as you build up and start seeing each other a lot, the friendship blossoms to a point where, yeah, you're besties. And it's the same with networking. So this is a great way that if you're looking for a lower cost to marketing your business, a different way to advertise and finding the next customer, it's an alternative to building and growing your business. Guys, if you love that video, I hope you did. There's some more videos that we do have on my channel. Check them out. It's all about growing your business. It's all about thinking about the mind, thinking about some practical tips and stuff that you can take away and you can apply in business. I've been in business for 10 years. I've been an accountant since I was 21 and I love it. I love seeing businesses like you succeed. So check out my other videos. If you think they're great, give them a thumbs up. Until next time, have a good one and let's hear about your successes in business. I'm Nathan Rigney, I'm the Profit Generator, and I look forward to seeing you next time.